Hey guys, it's Katie. So, I'm showing you now in the beginning the project we're going to be making because someone told me I should. Rather than keep you in suspense, I should just show you what the project that I made. Because I don't make multiple projects, this is the exact project I made, and after I'm done recording the tutorial, I just take it and show it to you. So this one is a really cute little pendant, and obviously you're going to see more of it within the video, but it's kind of a mixed media piece, so it will not be for everybody. It's not using tons of clay. You know, the base is clay, and the back I used my scrap from my translucent. Oh, it still has a little sandpaper dust in it that I gotta rinse under some water. But anyways, this is the piece. And so I hope you enjoy it. And I will, well, I'm already done the video, so I'll talk to you next time, but you'll watch the video. So, have fun. Okay, so we're going to be using some different products today that I tested out a little bit ago. And I haven't made this project yet. I will do an intro with the project that I finished, just so you can see it right in the beginning. But so far, all I've made is just this tester piece. One, to test out these little pieces in here to see how they bake, and then two, to see how the resin takes to it. So this is just a tester piece, and it only has one thin coat of resin, so it's still a little ripply. Probably will need 2 coats. This is a pretty thin coat of resin though. But I don't know if you can see there how shimmery and pretty it is. Okay, so what I have here, and in my Facebook page, if you go to the tab at the top, there's like announcements, photos, there's something called files. If you go in there, I posted the link to these, and so these are what I searched for on like Amazon and different places was crushed shell or crushed stone, stuff like that. That's the same one. That's about the same one. And I ordered 2 different sets. So this is set 1. This is a different brand here. So I have a whole bunch of them, different colors. This is set 2. So I didn't know what they would look like, and I didn't know, so I ordered a couple different ones. I think they were like $9 for each set. That's set 2, or something around there. Let me just get them all out so you can see them all. So this one I think was more expensive in these round ones because they came with a lot more. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 of those. And then these ones here, I got both their set colors. So one of the sets came with this purpley one, came with this one here that's like an off-white with a green undertone. It came with this brighter white here. And then it also came with this color too. So these are the 3 nudes that it came with. And then it came with the purple and then this kind of greener color, which reminds me of faux abalone. Okay. And then the second set also comes with that faux abalone looking color. And then it also came with this reddish color, which I wish I had more of because I like that color. It came with this kind of brown green. It came with the purple. And it came with this kind of golden tone. So this is one set here with the red. So if you go to the files, you'll get the link to it, and then there's 2 color options. There's the one with the red that has these ones. Okay. And this set doesn't have the red, okay, and it has an extra, the white, pretty much. So these are what I'm going to be using, but go ahead and just search everything. Search Etsy, search eBay. You know, like I said, I was just searching crushed stone. crushed shells. I just had things in my mind. I think these are made actually for nail art. So we're going to be using those and applying them onto clay. And I thought it looked pretty. And then these ones are slightly different, but they're also pretty. I haven't tested these ones out, so I'm, you know, if it doesn't work, you won't see the video, because obviously it will melt in my oven. So I have all of these. So first thing first, you need some clay. And on this one, I just used scrap clay, and you can definitely see the clay through any openings you may have. So you definitely want to pick a color clay you may like. I haven't tried it out on black, so I'm going to try it out on black because I think the colors might stand out. I'm also going to back this piece, and I'm going to back it just because I feel like it tonight. I normally don't, but I'm going to. So I have, from my black lace cane, I have a scrap. From one of my videos, I showed you to keep your scraps. And this is a scrap, and this is what I'm going to use for my backing. It's on the thickest setting right now, and I don't want my pendant to be that thick, plus the layer of the black and the shell. So I'm going to take this down to a setting 3 on my Atlas 150. So at 0 is the thickest, and a 9 is the thinnest. I'm going to take it to a 3, just to thin it out a little bit. And then I'm going to pick an area I like. Let's see. I also decided, because I don't use these cutters that often because they're too skinny for canes, because I feel like they won't show enough of my cane, because I usually only wear one pendant. I don't make a whole necklace set myself. It's just too much for me to wear personally. So these are Jessima Designs rounded dagger set, and I think it's her large set. But I'm not 100% positive of that. You'll have to check what sizes you want. But it's a rounded dagger. It's a longer, skinnier one. And I'm going to kind of pick a spot I like. So do I want to do this side? Do I want to do this side? This will just be the back. I kind of like this area right here, something like that. I like both sides. I think they're fun. I like how it crackled. I like this area right here. How that one's really faded back there. Just a thin layer of the black lace. I love these. I love stretching them out like this. I think I'm going to go with the other side, I think. So if you're going to go, whatever side you're going to go with, you want to, this is my tile I'm going to bake on, you're going to want it face down. So first I'm just going to kind of decide on the area I want to go with, though. I want to do something like this, because I like this part here. I also like this part here. I like a lot of it. I might just do this, something like this. Get the bright orange, or the bright yellow, sorry. Okay. Then what I'm going to do is rough cut this. I'm not going to cut it yet, just so I have an idea of where I wanted to use it. And again, you could save this, which I probably will. I don't check any of my scraps. You never know when you need filler clay. Okay. So I know if I put my cutter closer to the edge, I'll probably get what I want. And I could even make on the side here a little nick mark. That could be one tip. Okay. So I'm going to put it face down on my baking tile. Okay. I'm going to smooth it out really nicely. And I don't tend to bake on paper. If you bake on paper, put it on paper. I just don't tend to bake on paper. Yes, it gets shiny spots. Yes, there are little micro bubbles that happen. But for me, anytime I have baked on paper, I haven't found, it doesn't get shiny spots, but those little bubbles still happen. So, you know, that's a personal preference. All of this is very personal on what you want to do. Okay? And so my tip was about here. I know I want to put it near the edge. Okay, I'm going to go about there. And the next thing I'm going to do before I cut it, I think I'm going to cut them both together. So I'm going to apply my black onto it. And now this black is rolled out on a setting 3 as well. And this is what we're going to be working on here. And so I'm going to lay my black on here. And I'm trying to push out any air. Kind of smoosh them together a little bit. Sorry, my fiance's showering if you just heard him blow his nose. He works construction, so he gets a lot of dirt up his nose. A couple little air bubbles under there I can see, so I'm going to take a needle and see if I can pop it out. Really. I don't know if you can see one right there, and there's another one right there. I'm going to see if I can. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know why they're barking. Hang on. I don't know. We'll see. I can also see the edge of the clay right here, so I'm going to cut some of this black off a little bit. That way I have more idea of where that edge is that I wanted to stick my cutter on. Put my black back in my black bag. And you can use these shells any way you want. This is just how I'm using them, a very basic, simple way. Okay, so again, my edge is right there. I can still see my nick mark from the side here. It's about here where I wanted my tip and my end of my cutter to go. And I'm not going to cut this out yet. What I'm going to do is rough cut. No. I think I did cut it out first because you won't be able to cut through the stone. So if it goes over your edge, if you lay stone on a piece, sorry, I don't know why I keep going out of view. If you are to lay this stone on your veneer and then go to cut pieces out of it, the stone is hard. You're not going to get a cutter through it. So I did cut my piece first, so I'm going to cut straight down. Hang on, I need to push really hard, so I got to get up. Especially with the camera in my way. Okay, make sure that's cut out really nicely. Pull those apart. Let me see if I can separate them. Some. So what I would do is save whatever black I can, pure black. I'll put that back in my black bag, and the other will just be scrap. Okay. And I'm not going to be able to see my back until this is done, pretty much. Okay, so that's what we have right now. Okay, that's our shape, basically. Now, you got to pick what colors and things you want to use, depending on what you have, what colors you're going to use. And pretty much we're just going to lay these little pieces on. Now, the best way I found to deal with these pieces are by using some kind of tweezer. And I have these tweezers, and I think I got them when I was doing some diamond painting, that 3D diamond painting. Kind of like paint by numbers, but with little gems. And I think this came with one of them. But a set of tweezers will work well. Because if I open these up to show you, these are very, very thin chips, okay? That one's really square. They're usually not that square. These are very, very thin chips. They have like an iridescent. Usually one side's a little more iridescent than the other, so pick a side you like. And it's easier to pick them up like this. Now it does look like they use them for something else, and then these are like their scraps, but you can pretty easily break these up if you need smaller ones. And we're going to lay them on like mosaics. Now this is kind of a finicky, nitpicky little thing. It did take me a while to lay these on here. It took me quite a while to lay these on because I didn't want a double layer. I wanted them all flat. And I would break pieces to fit right perfectly next to another piece. So I'm going to decide on what colors I want to use. And then I will be back in a second because it is getting into fall here. So give me a sec. Let me figure out what colors I want to use and I'll be back. So because it's fall, I think I want to use the red one from the red set. And then I'm going to use this color, which it doesn't have any colors on it. I'm going to use a pure white, and then I'm going to use this slightly dirtier one. So I have like, these are like 3 different tones of more of a pure white, an off-white, and then more of a brown tone. Oh, and these were all from the same set, actually. This was from the not red set, the set that didn't come with red. If you actually look up that link that I posted in my files on my Facebook group, this is the set that does not come with red. Has all 3 of these. And then it comes with the green one, like the faux abalone. Comes with the green one and the purple one. Okay, so I'm using 3 from this set, okay, the one without the red. And then I'm going to use the red from the second set. Okay, I'm not using green, so I'm going to use these 3 and the red because I think they'll be pretty together. And then I may accent with just a few of these. We'll see. They also have in this type, they also have this kind of, it's not really rose, but like this dusty brown kind of color. It's got like pink and brown, but it has a nice opalescence to it. So I may accent with these. The rest of them are fairly springy, so for this I kind of want to fall. They also have this orangey color that actually may look good. So we'll see. We'll figure it out. Pretty much all we're going to do, and again, that's personal preference on what colors you use. Pretty much all we're going to do is lay pieces on. So I did end up dumping a lot of them out because the larger pieces I may want to save for later on bigger projects. You know, some of these are gorgeous. Like, look at that one. You know? So, I don't know. I'm just kind of trying to... Now, I'm laying them on like a puzzle. I want to try to get as many on here as I can. That one's quite cool. These are super cool because they're very organic. Okay. So, you may need to break some up into smaller pieces, but usually down at the bottom you do get smaller pieces to begin with, which is kind of nice. That's why I tend to dump them out, but you don't have to. Like here's a fairly small piece that I'll probably use towards the end when I'm filling in. So let's see. Here's kind of a cool piece, but what side do I want to use? It's got more purple than red. I don't know what is going on upstairs, why everybody's banging. More red tones. So I'm not going to record me doing all of this, but I just want to show you. That one's not iridescent enough. So if you can get 1 or 2 really big pieces on there, that's what I'm trying to look for, is 1 or 2 like larger pieces that I can fit on here and then fill around that. And I'm not going all the way to the, I'm not going to go all the way to the edge. I'm going to go really close to the edge. I don't know if you can see on my tester piece, I tried to get it close to the edge, but I didn't go all the way to the edge. And I can always trim up this edge a little bit. And then we're just going to set them on there. And because it's raw clay, it really doesn't need to be adhered down. Plus we're going to resin it down on there. And then you could just pick it back up and move it. Now they are quite transparent, I'm seeing, so when I put it against the black, it does change the color a little bit. So we'll see when I get there what colors I want to use. What if we put this one more here? Like that. Okay. And then, actually, let me do another piece. Now, if they're too square, again, you can break them up. make them a little more jaggedy. I don't want them to be super square. And these will be the small filler pieces I'll use. This didn't have a lot of small pieces. That one there. I want this mainly to be red, which is why I'm doing a lot of the red. I don't know if I want to use this piece. So just have fun with this. This is a fun one. Just to really play and have a good time with. Sorry, everybody's coming downstairs as loud as they possibly can. Maybe that one I'll put there. It's this piece sticking off. Oh, it does shine. Okay, I'm going to put that one there. And you can either leave gaps or no gaps, you know, it's kind of really up to you. I might leave slight gaps. We'll see as I go. Okay, so those are nice couple big pieces of the red, and then I'll decide on another color that I want to put in, maybe the white. Let's see how the white will look on the black before I even put it on there. Yeah, that'll look okay. Okay, so let me dump out the white over here. I don't want it to be really square though. I want it to be a little more organic than that. So I'm just... So it's just like doing mosaics. You can actually just cut and break pieces off however you want them, but on polymer clay. Okay. So just enjoy, relax, and this is all going to be very personal. So I'm going to continue just laying pieces on here. Okay, this isn't very difficult. It's just time consuming. It's kind of pretty relaxing. You don't really have to focus on it too much. Just kind of enjoy it and have a good time, and see what kind of cool creation you could come up with, you know. It does seem easier, like I said, to use a tweezer. Kind of set it down in there. Come on, that's gonna be pretty. Especially when it moves. Like in person, it's so much more iridescent than what the camera's picking up. Gorgeous. And then I also may get out my third color because I don't want to use too much of one. I mean, I did want the red on there for sure. Now, do I want this color or do I want the darker brown? Could also do the gold tone. No, but the white's too clean. Let's do this one here. I like to dump them out, and that way I can see a group of pieces at once. I started off by not dumping them. When I did the first one, I wasn't dumping them. But then later, I just found it easier to dig through and find pieces if I was dumping them. Or if I did dump them. It's just kind of easier. That actually fit fairly nicely there. I'm going to have to get some smaller ones to fit in here though, so you know what? Yeah, let's put that one there. let's do it. That one has a little more green to it. So this one is definitely kind of like a puzzle. Just kind of fitting pieces together. They're really hard to pick up though because they're so flat. What if I put that one right on the tip? And I'm not pushing them way in, just gently, because I don't want to distort my shape too much. I'm just gently kind of pushing them in there. Okay, so I'm going to continue on doing this. And when I'm done with that, I will be back and I will show you. So of course I'm not done yet, but I'm loving this as I'm doing it. And I didn't want my spacings too far apart, so I didn't shift some closer together. But like, look at this piece that just came out. It almost fits perfect right here. If I can get it to go where I want it to go. I love that. Love, love, love that. It's beautiful. And I'm just kind of taking my finger and feeling along the edge to make sure nothing's sticking out. That way when I buff my edge, you know, look how gorgeous. See, so pretty. This is one of the pink ones that I used in this color, but I don't want to use a lot of that. This is the orange next to the red right up here. I do like how that shines. In these round ones, that was the orange one right here and right here. So I'm kind of mixing all these sets together depending on my look. So I'm going to keep going. Okay, so the more I'm filling this in, the more it got me thinking I should probably decide where my hole's going to go. And I don't generally do holes until the end for a reason. So I'm not going to make a hole, but I'm going to mark where my hole's going to go. Because again, we won't be able to drill through this. So I'm going to take like a needle tool or something, or a needle itself. I'm just going to kind of make sure I don't put any shells there. I mean, if you're using a rotary tool to do it, that would probably go through it, but I don't want to drill through really hard by hand. I don't want to have to put that much pressure. Now, not everybody will like this project, and that's fine. You don't need to do it, and this may be difficult if you have hand issues. Sorry, I'm just looking, trying to see roughly where the center is. Somewhere around there, so I'm going to leave that space right there free of stone. That way, roughly, my hole's going to go right there after I resin it. Because if I put a hole in now, the resin will want to go down in there, and it's just a pain in the butt. So try to wait until the end to resin, or to do your hole. Plus, it distorts your shape. In real life, like when I'm looking on the side of this camera, when I'm moving this, it is so much more shimmery. It looks okay on camera, but not amazing. But in real life, it looks gorgeous. So I, again, am just going to keep laying on This is kind of fun because it adds like mosaics that I used to do in with clay. I haven't done mosaics in like a year or two. Actually, that piece goes over quite far. I thought that was rock clay, but it wasn't. Ooh, these little ones I tend to fling everywhere. Okay, I'll just go around my hole. So I'll just keep filling in like I have been. Okay, so I'm done laying it out. It looks awesome from the side like that, like as it's laying there. Oops. I'm gonna bump my edge picking it up. That's what I have. And now you can see little areas where my tweezers hit a little bit, but just a little bit. So I'm not going to mess with it too much. I left my hole right there at the top to drill. So pretty much all I need to do now is get it in the oven for baking. I'm going to bake it at 275 because I was using Primo for a full hour, full 60 minutes. 275 degrees Fahrenheit for a full 60 minutes. And then when that's done, I'll trim up the sides a little bit, sand the back, and then we'll resin. I really like it. Actually, I'll probably smear the sides. I don't know. I'll bake it for a full hour just in case I'm not going to do a smear or a border, but I may actually do a border because that yellow and that one I don't like. That stands out too much. I don't usually border them because I don't usually mind the difference between the sides because I don't usually do backings. So like on a lot of the pendants, I don't usually mind the sides looking because it drags down on the piece. So I, you know, like this isn't one I was keeping, but it usually drags down from the top to the side. So I don't generally smear it all the time. I'm totally okay with the cane smearing the sides, but this one, that yellow is going to be a little too bold, so I may smear the sides or put a border. But I'm still going to bake it at an hour because I want to make, I'm not sure if I'm going to do that. I'm not positive. So I'll bake this for an hour. I'll get that in the oven. And when it's done, I will be back. Okay, so it's the next day. And I put this in the oven last night. And it seems like all my pieces are holding. So I pushed them in far enough, which is fine. Now what I'm going to do is just trim my edge up a little bit, and that way I can add a border. Here's the back, which I'm obviously going to be sanding. But I do want to get the edges trimmed up because there's a little lip right there, and that way I can smear the edge. Now, I have showed in different videos different ways you can add an edging. One by using your extruder. You can extrude one of the smaller sausages and then flatten it out in your pasta machine. Most extruders come with a flatter rectangle. You could squirt that out and put it along. I tend to do what I know as a Jessima smear. Now, it is kind of difficult for people. It does take a lot of practice. It is not my technique, so I'm not going to go into crazy detail. I would just say look up Jessima Designs, Jessama, Jessima Designs. or Jessima tutorials or whatever on YouTube. And she has a smear, Jessima's smear. And she goes into a lot of detail of how to do it. And she was the one who, I think, came up with it. So I'm assuming, you know, you want to learn that way is the best way to learn. But first thing, I'm going to take my Dremel, and you can do this by hand. You can sand the edges by hand. I have these bits here, and these are sandpaper discs that I got off of Amazon. Sandpaper bits. Let me see if I can find my bag and if it still has. So this is what the bag says. So they come in different grits. It's pretty coarse. I think the finest is 600. Yeah, and then it's lower than that. So I don't use all the grits. But drum sander set, 384 pieces. Okay. And there, I just, pretty much when I search things, I search Dremel sanding bits, you know, stuff like that. They come with the mandrels that they slide onto. And I use these for major trimming if I have to do major trimming. Now, the orange wheel that I also use will trim the edge, but it's going to make it fairly smooth. And I want the, which I have used this before I smeared it, but I'm thinking if I use this, one, if any stones slightly hanging over the edge, it'll grind it. Two, if it's a little coarser, maybe the clay will stick a little better when I smear it on, because that's usually what the hard part is it doesn't stick very well. So I'm going to use this probably on a lower setting, probably like a little under 15. I use as I've said before, a Dremel 4000 that I bought off of Amazon. It was cheaper because it was refurbished or reconditioned by Dremel. I've had it for about 3 years, you know, so I didn't know how long it would last, but it's lasting quite a long time, which is nice. With the Dremels, or at least with this one, it has a lock button, and you have to push in the lock button to open and close your chuck to allow your bit to slide in and out. And you're keeping your finger down the whole time. You put your bit in, you can hold it up a little way, you can put it all the way down however you want it. And then you want to close it to lock it into place. And then give it a tug and make sure it's in there so it doesn't go wee and work off on you. I'll just show you a second of this, and then I mean, my shape isn't too bad, so I'm not really shaping it, but you can shape it. I'm okay with my shape. It's more just I want to get off any of these from the plastic cutter, any of these little straggly bits. So I'm going to choke up on it. Let me go over my lap so it's easier for me to hold. I'm going to choke up on it, okay? And I'm going to use my thumb, and I'm going to pull towards me most of the time. Sometimes I go away. Most of the time I pull towards me. Gives you a little more control. If you're not comfortable with your Dremel, definitely go at a lower speed, because then you just have a little more control. At a higher speed, things can happen. Now, I did bump my edge last night when I went to pick it up and show you, so I'm just cleaning up my edge a little bit on the tip there. It got a little wonky. Okay. I'm going to be careful going around the tip. A lot of times when I have a point like this, right here, I'll go away from me because it trims a little less. And that's the way the drum is rotating, so it kind of drags it. If you go towards you, you can actually remove more, or it will catch a little bit. Your bit will sometimes. No, that can't be there. Now, you can get flexi leads for Dremel, so you don't have this big thing in your hand, but it is more complicated to set up. I know Fiona Abel Smith did a video on things she wished she knew, and that was one thing. She ordered a Dremel with a flexi lead, and she's like, I don't even know how to set this whole thing up, and she doesn't use it because of that. So if you're not very tool savvy, or you don't got a man who's tool savvy, or someone to set it up and explain it, the regular Dremel is pretty self-explanatory. The flexi leads you do have to put together and things. I'm going to flip it this way for a second. My top isn't quite symmetrical for some reason. Not that it needs to be perfect either. It might just be because of where I added my stone. This side looks more rounded. Okay, that was it. So again, I'm going to do a little smear on this. I really love this. So, the wind today is absolutely crazy, and my dogs keep hearing things outside and they keep barking. So I'm really, really sorry, because I hate on videos when people's dogs bark, because my dogs go crazy when someone's dogs bark. And if I watch tutorials, it's before bed, and then my fiance's sleeping, and all of a sudden the dogs are barking. So I try to pause it when they start barking. So hopefully they won't, from hearing things outside. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to use some black clay, but again, you can border this with whatever clay you want. Doing this smear, you get less visibly showing, okay? And mainly, I don't want this yellow showing. You could take acrylic paint and paint the edges, but you'd have to seal that so it doesn't come off with wear and tear, because you're going to be wearing this. You could, there's many ways to do things. But if you're using your extruder, like I mentioned, the extruder will put a thicker border on. So I'm just trying to warm up some clay. In my hands. And then I kind of make a sausage. And Samantha's really good at doing this in one shot. I am not. I don't smear a lot, but I'm not that great at doing this. So literally, usually what I do is I put it on, and I try to get it to stick. I'll pull down like she does, but then I usually can't make it all the way to the end. So then I have to start over. That one actually stuck a lot more than normal. And a lot of times what I'll do is I'll just do this, and I'll pat it down all the way. And that will make it thicker, but when I end up pulling, it doesn't always work for me. But I think actually grinding it with my Dremel just made it a little rougher, so it's sticking a little better actually. Now I don't want it to stick in my stones, so I'm going to just break all of this extra off. Oops. Okay, so again, please check her tutorial out on how to smear the edge. It is not, that is a technique where I know someone else did it, so I'm gonna, that's her thing. So I'm not gonna really teach you guys on that. So I'm gonna continue doing this. Please check out Samantha's tutorial. If I think about it when I post this next week at work, I will try to find the link, but it is right on YouTube. You just search it, the Jessima smear. And again, she's much better at it, but she does it a lot, so she's had practice with it. I don't do it that much, so I don't have a lot of practice with it. But I'm going to smooth it a little bit more to make it a little more even, but compared to that side, you already have more of just a black base. Okay, I'm going to continue doing this. I'll be back when that's done, and I'll show it to you before I get it in the oven. And that way you can see it raw. And then we'll bake this again. Now I'm doing this before I resin, because not all resins can take the heat of the oven. I learned quite early on, after later when I decided to add something else to a piece. I put it back in the oven and my resin yellowed a little bit. So not all resins can tolerate the oven. So usually if you want to bake, do it before. I also recently got a question of why do I sand and buff everything if I'm just going to resin it. So resining hides a lot. Yes, it hides indents very well. So if like you have a seam or something, but it doesn't hide everything, okay? I resin because I like the way resining looks, not because I need to resin everything. Something like this that has texture and I want to make sure these won't come off, I will resin for security, to make sure it doesn't wear off if I give it to someone, a piece doesn't fall off. But on most pieces, just by sanding and buffing, as you guys see, which is why you're asking me why do I either sand and buff and then resin, or why don't I just leave it like that, most of them are fine without resin. I like the feel of the resin, so when I'm like wearing them, I find at work I'm like rubbing it. I like the finish and the way it looks when it's resined. I don't know, it just looks more like glass. People ask me all the time, how do you get it so shiny? That's awesome, you know, and that's how. So that's more just of a personal preference of why I add resin. Now, if you're adding resin, the reason why I sand and buff and don't just resin. So say these pumpkins, right? I spent a lot of time, one, making those. Say I would have added the resin on without sanding and buffing, and there was a little bump or a little rough spot or whatever, and the resin didn't cover it, right? I resined it, and I go, crap, I can still see that bump through there. Oh no, you're done. You can't go back and sand that. You can't go back and buff that. You're done. That piece is always going to have that bump in it. So either you're remaking a new one, or you're dealing with it and it's always going to bug you. So to me, better safe than sorry. I'd rather just do it ahead of time and be safe that it won't show up, rather than learning it after the fact, after I've already spent 3 days on making the project, the cane, the veneer, cutting it, smoothing it, the whole, you know what I mean? I'd rather just have it look nice. Plus it looks nicer. If you can get a high shine when the resin goes on, it just looks neater. And I'm not all about neat. I don't care. I don't mind imperfections. That's why I don't do tons of backings, because I'm not overly critical about that kind of stuff. But yeah, anyways, I'm going to finish this up. This takes a few. And then I will be back when this is done and I'll show it to you. Okay, so my outside's done, and it's not a perfect smear. It is a little wavy in spots, but I can always smooth that with my buffing wheel. See right here? I'm okay with that. I'll deal with it. I'll take my buffing wheels later and buff it down. Now, I don't like to hide anything from you, so I want to show you I had a little piece fall out. One piece. And it's a big piece. It's kind of where I was holding it, so I think I might have just pushed it off. Now, there's a couple ways you can reapply this on pretty easily. So initially we baked it on raw clay, which is why we didn't need anything. But now that the clay is baked, it won't stick, right? So there's two ways you can do this. One or two. Let me grab them both. So you can use some Bake and Bond. Pretty easy. It's a liquid clay. You would just put a little bit in there. And that will harden in the oven. Or Lisa Pavelka makes this, and this is called Polybonder, and it's a high temp, it's almost like a high temp super glue. It will harden before it gets in the oven. Like, so you could glue, it feels like super glue, like you could glue your fingers together. So you brush this on, and then you would stick that to it, and it would actually glue it down before it even gets in the oven. But it can also go in the oven because it's meant for high temperature. So this is a pretty cool product. It is a little expensive for this 0.17 ounce, 5 gram bottle. I mean, this is like a tiny, tiny little bottle. But it works kind of cool for this kind of stuff, or metal embellishments that you don't want sliding around. So I'm going to show you this. So it has a little paintbrush here, and I got this on Etsy. Has a little paintbrush like a nail brush. Now this hardens quickly. It's like super glue, so you don't want to like leave it open. So in this case, I would just dab a little on or put my piece on. And in this case, with the Bake and Bond, I would just smear just a little tiny drop just to make it sticky and put it on. And I just wanted to show you both, but I'm probably going to use Bake and Bond. I don't have any reason why I wouldn't use either. Like, to me. The Lisa Pavelka Polybonder works well, like I said, if you want things to harden right now and it's going to sit on your counter for a minute and you don't want it to move around, or you're going to continue working on it and you don't want it to move around, that works well. Because the liquid clay or the Bake and Bond won't harden until it gets in the oven, whereas the Polybonder will harden just with time it'll set. So that's what's cool about the poly bonder. And I think I've used it in another tutorial. So I'm then going to set this piece back where it was. Make sure I have enough there. Yep, I have enough. And then I will get this in the oven. And I'm going to bake it for another full hour to make sure everything's nice and hard. And then when I'm done, I'll probably show you how to resin this one because this isn't a long, not compared to my other tutorials, not a long tutorial. So I'll show you how to resin quickly. And then I will we'll drill the hole and put the bale in. Okay, so I'm going to get this in the oven, 275 for a full hour, or your recommended temperature, but I definitely would always go for a full hour to make sure it's going to be stronger than not. But that was the only piece that came off. And that piece, I don't know if I can show it, sets up a little higher than the rest. It's a little thicker, so I'm thinking my finger, like I said, I think my finger got caught on it and pulled it off. See how there's like a little, it's a little thicker than the rest of them. But again, not a big deal. I just put it on. Okay, so I'm going to get it in the oven. I'll be back. Okay, guys, so it's now out of the oven. The sides are done. The back does need to be sanded, but I'm not going to do it until I get this fully sealed, okay? I do have a resining video of how I resin and the 2 kinds of resins I generally use, but I'm just going to show you how I'll do this one. Now, I do have this resining mat. I got it on Amazon. It was a big sheet, and I have this little piece of foam, so I cut little squares out of it, cut little squares out of that because I didn't need the sheet. I mean, the sheet was huge, way bigger than a piece of paper, so I just cut little squares. Now, generally, I put the piece on this side with a little point sticking up, and that way, if the resin runs off, it goes way down in the grooves. But this one's hard to balance on the little points. So I am going to flip it on the other side. If the resin does run off, it could cover a lot of my back because it can lay on these squares. So I'm going to try to center it in between some of the squares. So if it drips off, it goes down into the hole. Now, there's 2 types of resin I usually use and 1 type that I just got. Now, generally I use my Decor ROM, but it's a quick curing resin. I get it off of Amazon. It's fairly cheap. The Decor ROM UV resin hard, and again, I've explained this in my resin tutorial, but you do get a little distortion with this one, such as this one here. It kind of tilted the ends up a little bit. I don't mind that usually, but I don't want this one to distort because I'm afraid the pieces would pop up or lift up. Okay, so normally don't mind that. The other one I started using in the beginning first was the Easy Dome. Now, the Easy Dome takes about 30 minutes to cure. I generally find I have to leave it in there longer, in my tiny Pandora light, even longer than that. It's pretty liquidy, okay? So the Decor ROM's a little thicker than that. The RJ Crafts is definitely fairly liquidy. When it comes out, it has this smear layer that you have to take some alcohol to and really buff it off. This one's harder to use if you're new because it is liquidy, so you may get more spills. But the more you use it, the more you get used to it. I've been actually using this lately because I have 2 bottles of it. And I'm actually getting more used to the consistency of it. It doesn't seem to pull away from the edges a lot because it is a slower curing resin. It is more expensive, and you can only get it from RJ Crafts, so it's a harder one to find. Plus, I think her name's Rhonda. She's been sick, so everything is backed up. The other one I just got is the Lisa Pavelka Magic Gloss. Now, this one's like the consistency of honey, so it's definitely, you got more control over it. The only problem I found with this is it does pull away from the edges a lot. So you're going to have to play with it to figure out, one, if you have to do multiple coats. All I did was put it on my piece, wait a couple minutes. You can actually see it when it's not in the light, just sitting here. You can see it pulling away from the edges. Then I added a little bit more, re-put it back out to my edges. If it pulled away, I added another little drop, and I just kept adding until it stopped pulling away from my edges. And I actually, even though I did that, I had to put 2 coats on this. I did 1 coat, it pulled away a little bit in the light. And that's how it domes, because it pulls everything to the center, and that's how you're getting a dome. So I did a second coat on this one, and it does go all the way up to the edges, and it does have a nice dome. So pretty much when it comes to resin, you're just going to have to try them. I mean, the Lisa Pavelka Magic Gloss can come in a tiny little bottle, a little 1 ounce bottle. The RJ Crafts, I think, does come in a smaller bottle than the 4 ounce, and as well, so does the Decor ROM. So please play and try to figure out what you're going to use, what's going to be easier for you. I think for this one, I'm going to use the Easy Dome. I use a toothpick generally to spread it around, but lately I've actually been thinking, why can't I use my silicone tools, right? You can wipe it off. I don't have to waste a toothpick. I can use that to spread it around. I also use a torch to blow out any bubbles. I find with the UV resin, I can't get the bubbles out with a straw. I know some people with regular resin, the bubbles will rise to the surface. You can blow with a straw. With the UV resin, they don't really come to the surface very much. So I do use a torch. You know, I wave it over it really quick and then take it off. Wave it over real quick, take it off. So I'm not overheating anything, because you don't want to overheat things. Okay. And I think essentially that's it. Okay, so let me get everything cleaned up, ready to go, and I'll be right back, and I'll show you how I'm going to do it. Okay, so I do have a little piece of something taped over my light, but I just turned my light on so it's ready to go, and that way I can just put this in it. But it's far enough away that it won't affect this resin while I'm working on it. So I'm going to put a little bit in the middle. Okay, I hope you can see it okay, but if you can, it is what it is. It's clear. And then I'm just going to spread it out to the edge. Now, it is like water where it does have surface tension, just like the water molecules do, so it can help it not spill. That said, this surface is not even, so it could run. So I'm just dragging a little bit around to each one. Now this surface is rough, so I may get spills. We'll see. I may not. I may not. Trying to get it down in all the little grooves and crevices between each of the shells. And I'm probably going to have to do 2 coats because some of the shells are thicker than others. So most likely it won't look super even. On the first coat, it'll probably look wavy, like that test pendant I did was a little wavy, because that was the first one. So if anything you do is not perfect, it's okay. Now, if you ever have to recoat a pendant because you missed a spot, you have to coat the whole thing. You can't just coat that one spot. Or at least I haven't found a way that I can coat one spot, because you'll see it. So now that I have a thin layer over everything, I usually move it in the light so I can see it without tilting it too much. I'm going to take my torch, and this is just a torch I got on Amazon for like creme brulee, and I'm going to quickly put it over it. And I don't have the flame as high as it can go. Let it cool for a second. Put it over it again. Flame off. Flame off. Flame off. Now there are cracks in this piece, so it is gonna, and it will rise to the surface. But, you know, you get little air bubbles, it's not the end of the world. You can also see them in the light as you tilt it around, or like not tilt it, but just turn it around. I can see them in my light. And then usually I'll move my head over it. That way I can see any. Okay, that's probably about good. Made those shells look really, really shiny. So I just have a thin coat on right now, which is fine because I know I'm going to need to double coat it. So I'm going to set this in my light. And I'll leave that in there for a good 40 minutes. Let's see, it's 7:57. does this work? Oh, well, it worked there and it's on for 60 minutes, so whatever. Anyways. And then we'll do another coat. Now, the first time I did this on just this tester piece, as you can see here, if I tilt it, you see it's kind of wavy, and that's where I know I'm going to need a second coat. So I just put a thin coat on this time. So when that comes out, I will show you what we got. Okay, so one layer is done. I do have a couple little air bubbles right here. I'm hoping they won't be that noticeable once I put another layer on, but they may. It's not the end of the world. It happens, and I'm pretty much probably the only one that's going to notice it, me and you, because I pointed it out. So I'm hoping once the top layer of resin gets on, it'll smooth that off and you won't really notice it. So I'm just going to apply another layer, again, more just a little bit in the middle. Again, drag it out to the edges, and it's harder to tell where you have applied it this time because you already have a layer there. I'm going to make sure you can see it. I'm zoomed in, so I have to keep looking up to make sure I'm still on camera. And when you get a resin, you know, we all have test pieces that we've done. We've all had pieces that, what I say are test pieces that did not come out as you had planned, and you wouldn't wear them, or just anything polymer clay. When you get your resin that you're trying out, try it out on a junk piece. Don't try it out for the first time on a piece you love. And that way you can see, one, how it cures, if it's going to distort it or not, or if you have to try to tape it, put some duct tape down or something and try to get it to stick to a tile with some duct tape, how long it's going to cure, all of that. How it goes on 2 coats, if you have to do 2 coats, because sometimes you have to do 2 coats. I mean, I try as much as possible to avoid doing 2 coats, but if I have to, I have to. Trying to get it down into that air bubble because it was actually not an air bubble trapped inside. It burst up out. I might even have to do 3 because this one piece of stone was, or shell, was really tall compared to the other ones. Just adding a tiny little bit more. I don't want to add too much because I don't want to spill, if I can help it. Spills happen. If anybody knows of something, because I can sand it off, but I can't ever get it as clear when you polish it. I can't ever get it as clear. I've tried different polishing things, but some of them, like I have a polishing paste. I don't know. In my head, I want to say it's like Biz something or something. I don't know. It's like a silver tube of this paste, but it's gritty, so it left scratches on this kind of resin. I've tried using I've tried using a rubber green stone in my Dremel, and then following up by a cotton one like this, a green stone like this, then that, and then my 2 buffing wheels. That gets it smooth, but it doesn't get it shiny again. So I don't know. Maybe people have a thing that will make it shiny. So what I've been doing with the Easy Dome, which I didn't do the first time, was heating it like this. And then letting it sit for a good minute and see if any bubbles will come to the surface. Just letting it sit on my table, because one, when it heats up, it gets really liquidy. So I find, oh, I have a little spill right there. Do you see it? So it happens. I'll show you how to deal with it when it's done. When it heats up, it gets really liquidy. Okay, so I'm going to get it in my light. I'm not going to let it sit because I don't want it all to pour off through that drip, but I'll show you the best way I feel like to deal with it. The best way I know how. When that comes out. So I'll let that sit again. Let's see if I can get this timer to work. 40 minutes. I don't know how to get it to work. Oh, I have to just touch the screen. And then when that comes out, I may or may not do another coat depending on if it's smooth or not. Because that red piece that fell off that I re-put back on was way higher up than every other piece, but I really liked it, so I used it. So again, I'll be back when the timer goes off. Okay, so it just came out of the oven, or the light, I mean. And I got 2 drips. I got one here at the top, one here on the side. The bottom has some on it because I left it like this. I need to wipe that off because that's not all the way cured, which is fine. That's why I usually do it on the point side. So I'm going to attempt to take this off without damaging my piece. It is kind of hard to do, but it can be done. So pretty much as I'm pulling up on it, I'm seeing it's already disconnecting from it. So pretty much I'm just going to take my craft knife and I'm going to slice where I want it to hopefully break, but hopefully not slice into my clay. And now anybody that says they're perfect at this is lying. I mean, this is not something you could be perfect at because it doesn't happen every single freaking time. Let's see. See? And I'll rebuff that up with my Dremel. And let's see if I can get this piece off the back here. Yep, there was a piece off the back. It wasn't fully cured because it was laying on the doming mat, or on the silicone mat. And this piece, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to attempt to slice where I want it to break. And hopefully it will peel off without peeling off my clay. There we go. And I can rebuff that up. Now my air bubble here, I know it's smearing because that's the... My air bubble here is the only thing that I can feel now. It's closed, but... So now I'm like, do I want to do another layer to try to get that little divot gone, you know? Or do I just want to deal with it? So again, these aren't for sale. These are for my personal wearing. It's just a little freaking divot there, but I like to rub these and feel these, so I think I'm going to buff it. Or I think I'm going to do it one more time, one more layer on it. So right now, because I touched the front, see how that, like I was saying, that Easy Dome smears quite a bit like that? You have to clean this stuff off. So usually I'll use a paper towel or a jewelry pad or something. And then I tend to use only 70% alcohol because the 99 actually takes the shine away. Not that it would really matter because I'm going to put another layer on it. But if it was your top layer, I've used 99 before and I felt like it got duller. So I don't use the 99 on it. And again, I'll buff up those areas that it took my sheen off when I'm done. Because I may, oop, just flung it. I may get another spill at some point. If I do it one more time, I may get another spill. But I'm just doing thin layers. And that's kind of what I hate about this resin taking so long to cure. It's like great because it doesn't distort, but it takes so long to cure. It's like, you know, it takes forever. So it's kind of like picking and choosing what you like or don't like. I'm so impatient, but I like how it doesn't distort the piece at all. So at this point, I could use the faster curing resin on the top if I wanted to. Which I have done, used one resin and then use another one, a quicker curing on the top. I wish I could get it to stand up right on this side, but it'll fall right down in. That way if it does run, it doesn't go on the back, but oh well. I'm going to do this one final time. Just making sure I have no hair on my silicone tool. And most likely, because it ran in these two spots, it's probably going to do it again. Okay, we'll do one more time. That was a lot right there. And then also, because I added this smear on the outside, I'm getting more runs because it's more rounded than if it had been flat and cut with the cutter. This smear tends to be more rounded, or my smear at least. If I had rolled out a sausage on my extruder and ran it through the pasta machine, it would have had a wider black border, but it would have been square. So it probably would have helped the resin stay on a little better, but I didn't want a big bold border either. So, you know, just play and have fun and create, you know. It's all about having fun. But I love this. I love this. I think it's so pretty. And, you know, as I'm moving around, it'll catch the light really nicely. Let me make sure it's fully covered because I can't really tell. And who knows if my table's fully flat either. You know, if something's tilted a little bit this way or that way, it could run off just by sitting here. Excuse me. I don't usually get big bubbles. I don't know why I got such a big bubble the first time. Well, generally this would be up in the air and I'd be kind of moving it around so I could see it, but my camera's in my face, so I probably didn't even see that bubble, honestly. It was probably there and you probably saw it. I didn't see it with my camera on my face. I'm going to hold it up to the light so I can see. I'm getting a bubble. I'm sorry, guys. Because I can move my head from side to side and actually see if I'm seeing anything. I'm just doing quick waves over it. I know it goes blurry when I do that because that comes into focus, but okay, I don't really see anything. And now if that gets nice and smooth, let me make sure I'm holding it flat, that bubble will be in there, but because there's so much texture in there, I don't think it'll matter that much. Okay, so I'm going to put this in the light for another 40 minutes, and that should be the last layer. Oh, and I do see I'm getting a spill here. I probably tilted it too much. It's actually in a new spot. It's really hard doing things on camera. I know I say that, but I don't think until you do it, I don't think you really understand. Because literally I'm sitting here. The camera's less than my hand from here to here away. The camera's about this far away from my face. And it's... Let's see. $11 inches off of the table. So, you know what I mean? It's 11 inches off of the table, and where I sit, it's 4 inches from my face. So it's really hard to work in 11 inches of space, up and down, and with a thing right 4 inches away from my face. And I do have it in front of my face so I can see that you're seeing what I'm seeing. If I have it up higher, I have a hard time. If it's above my head, I have to keep like standing up and moving to make sure I'm still in focus, because I do tend to move around, you know. So it's just harder. I don't know. It's just harder to work on camera. So anyways, I'm going to set my timer. I was just cleaning things, but now I need to vacuum my desk off because I just got dust all over. 40 minutes. guess it just goes. I actually don't have to tap the screen. And I will be back when that's done. Hopefully that's the last time, and we'll put a bail. We'll drill a hole, put a jump ring and a bail on, and then it should be good to wear to work on Monday. And I will be uploading this on Monday. It's Saturday night, so I'll be uploading this on Monday. Anyways. Okay. So it's out. Final one's done. I did get a tiny little spill that I cleaned up the same way I showed you. I'm just going to get the smear layer off. I did forget. I have to sand the back. So for the back, because I'm going to use my buffing wheel, I'm going to sand with wet dry sandpaper. If you're using dry, you should be wearing a mask because polymer clay is a type of plastic, so you don't want to be breathing it in. I'm going to go 4, 6, 8, 1000 to 1500, and then I'm going to buff like I've showed you many times with my Dremel wheels, the orange and the white. I also want to say I now, on my Facebook page, there's tabs on there that says like photos, albums, announcements. Under the albums one, I thought it was going to be under files, but it didn't work. Under albums, I have screenshots of things that I've bought online within the recent years. If it's been a long time, I won't have it. Or if I bought it at a store, it won't be there. But these buffing wheels are there. Those sanding Dremel kind of barrels that I've used before that are pretty coarse grit though, so I don't use them often. But they're great for trimming up the edges and stuff. Those are on there. A few cutters. This shape cutter that I use a lot, I did post on there. My recent cutter shapes, like this one, I posted on there. This one's a Melanie Mirror one. So I do have some cutter shapes on there that I've used. The Decor Raw Resin. Oh, the shelf for this, I put the link for this. And if you want different ones, just go find different ones. You know what I'm searching for now that you have it. So anyways, so I'm going to sand the back just like we normally sand the back. The sides you can see where the resin ends, but that's being nitpicky with that. Again, no one's really going to be focused on your back and your sides. They're going to be looking at your pretty front. And that bubble is down in there, but I don't think it's crazy. I mean, yes, it's now that I'm pointing it out, you can see it, but I can't feel it anymore, so that's good. So when I rub it at work, because I find myself doing this, because I like the way the resin feels. Not pretty. It looks so much better in person. It really, really does. But even on camera, it looks pretty cool. The resin really brought out the shine in them. Okay, so I'm going to sand that back, and I'll be back, and I'll drill a hole. Okay, I have it sanded. I actually only went up to 1000. And then I'm going to buff it. I'll use my orange wheel and then my white wheel. Hopefully. I'm seeing something really, really cool here that you can't actually see, but you can see it in the shine, which is awesome. So when you look at it, you can't see it, but when you tilt it, do you see the pattern shining? Because that's the, there's two different clays in here. Isn't that cool? That's the translucent, and I believe it's I think it's Pardo. Isn't that cool? Kind of like that. You didn't really see it until you buffed it. Now when you tilt it, and then down behind here you can also see another layer of the pattern. I don't know. I like scrapbacks. I think they're fun. Now this soft wheel you can run over the front without scratching it just to get fingerprints off, but I'm not putting any pressure at all. Okay, the final thing we need to do is drill a hole. So I have my hand drill, and I did also put a link to this one on there. This is the first one I bought. It was pretty cheap. That's why I bought it, because it was cheap. It seems to be holding up fairly well. I've probably had it a good 6 months or so. Not actually 100% positive, but I've had it for a while now. I do find the really skinny ones can break, so you can buy more hand drill bits online. But if you put too much pressure, they can break. Now, the other thing I need to decide is what color jump ring and bail I'm going to use. Do I want to go silver? A nice little small silver one? Do I want to go bigger shape? Do I want to go not even with that, go kind of a rounder shape like this, just to kind of offset it? This is a little longer, like that, even. And then, or I have, these are more all the teardrop shapes. I have, different colors here. I could go with black. And let it be kind of nondescript. I do wear a lot of silver, which is why I tend to do silver. I might do silver just to let it shine. Why not? I'm going to do that shape. Oops, sorry. Okay, so when you use your hand drill, again, this part twists, so you put that in your palm, and that way you can just spin it in your fingers. I'm going to back out a little bit here. You can just spin it in your fingers, okay? When you close this one, the way you open and close this one is just by twisting it. I've seen other ones where you have to screw this thing off and put this thing with a plastic. It just looks really hard to switch them quickly. This one's pretty simple to switch quickly. Just by opening and closing, twisting this will open and close your chuck. So this first one's pretty skinny, so I got to get it fairly skinny. Then you stick it in and tighten it up. Okay. The other thing is I've seen people go right to their largest size. I tend to go from my smallest up, and that way I have less risk of cracking my piece. I don't crack them often. I did in the beginning when I was using cheaper clays, but I'd rather be safe than sorry anyways. So I know where my hole should be, because that's the only spot where there is no stone. So let me make a little indent and make sure that looks kind of okay there. And I generally do it on my table, but for you it's hard to see when I'm doing that. I have to get it started though, and this resin's super smooth, so. Sorry, hang on, I'll show you in just a sec. Once I can pick it up a little bit. And it goes through fairly easy. Now, when you're getting closer to getting through, move your finger, because I have pushed through on these little ones, and it can be sharp because you're putting a little pressure. Not tons of pressure, but you're putting pressure. And that little sucker can be like a little needle. Stick your finger. I drew blood once because I had my finger there. And sometimes, like, the resin will start clogging your thing, so just take it off and go again. It's actually fairly easy to hand drill, and then you get less distortion than if you make your hole before. You get less distortion in your shape. And then go from the other direction, and that will clean your hole up. Okay, and then we're just going to move up a size, unscrew that a little bit. I think this is my next size one. I have two that are almost identical, so I think it's those two. I usually start from my front side, go through, and clean up from the back side. It's pretty quick once you get your first hole. It's pretty much just widening it. Those two are almost identical, so I think the next one is, I feel like I'm missing one in between that, but nope, I didn't tighten it enough. And I don't make usually multiple pendants on a necklace because I don't wear that day to day. But you could make multiple of these and hang them, you know, like a smaller one and then a smaller one. It would look beautiful. I just don't tend to wear that unless I'm wearing, so why would I make it if I'm not going to use it? Yeah, why would I make it if I'm not going to wear it? You know what I mean? So I tend to only wear one pendant. I can't really wear too much jewelry in the dental field. You don't really want to be wearing a lot of jewelry in our field. God, in hygiene school, we couldn't have nail polish. We couldn't have our fingertips, our fingernails above the tips of our fingers. We could only have studs. You couldn't even have two holes in your ears. You only could have one earring in each ear, and it had to be a stud. You couldn't wear a necklace, no watches or wrist jewelry, no rings other than a plain wedding band. So I couldn't even wear my engagement ring. I needed a plain wedding band. No facial jewelry, no piercings that were showing, or tattoos that were showing. One girl, she had a tattoo on her neck. Oh my God. I felt so bad because, so I was the oldest in hygiene school. I think I went back to college. I was 25. I did part-time schooling for a little while at night after work from 6 to 9 at night, 2 days a week for a couple of years. And then when I decided to go back to school full time, I only worked, maybe 10 hours a week. But there was this one girl, and I was only 25. And like I said, I was one of the oldest in my class. I think there was one lady that was 30 and then one that was my age. And then the rest were all right out of high school. So this one lady, this one girl, 18 or so, wanted to get a tattoo. So she was going to get one on her wrist. But then she just had like these tiny little butterflies. And she had like 4 of them or something. I think they were for her and her siblings, meaning. And then she goes, oh, I'm going to hygiene school. So she got it on her neck, like on the back. So if her hair was down, you wouldn't see it, right? And they're tiny. They're like the size of a quarter, the biggest one was. And then the other ones were even smaller. Well, the teachers would not let her show that. She had to wear a Band-Aid on her neck all 3 years. So this poor girl, which is honestly feels like it's more awkward. Like, are the teacher, you know what I mean? Though they want her to hide it, I feel like if you're the patient and you see this girl with this big Band-Aid on her neck, are you thinking, what has she got under there? This huge scab or something? Like, I felt so bad for her. Most offices would be okay if you have a small tattoo, but I just felt bad. Anyways, so the jump ring opens obviously in one area. Now, again, I've said this before, you would think you would grab it with the pliers like this. Ideally, you actually want to put more grip on it. So if you turn your pliers around, and these are bent nose, I also put these on in the album because these are my favorite pliers. They're perfect size for my hand. They spring back very easily. They're like $8 or something. I have a bunch of other ones, like literally. Let's see if I can show you. Hang on. Look, I have tons of other ones, but these are my favorite. So anyways, the other ones are too fat for my hand. They're hard to do grip, especially when I was doing chainmail. These are really quick to, because they got little skinny handles. So anyways, getting off topic here. You want to grab it, and you can use your finger on the other side, but if you have 2, use 2. And you're going to be twisting from front to back, not pulling outwards, okay? So grab it, twist from front to back. Now this is a pretty thick one, so I don't think this, so this is like a U shape right here. I don't think that will fit here, but I'm going to try it. This is a 6mm, but it's a wider gauge. No, that ain't going to fit. Come on, get out of there. So the curve, when it was curving up, so if the pendant's like, this is the pendant border, right? When I'm sticking it through, it's curving up and it's catching up in there because the circle isn't wide enough. This part isn't wide enough. So it's going through and it's getting caught, if that makes any sense at all. The way I just explained that. So let me grab a wider one. So those were 6mm. I also have, these are 7s. Let me try a 7. I try to go with the smallest one I can. I don't have 8mm jump rings, and I really need to order 8mm jump rings, because then I think my next one is 10, which is huge. And I was using it when I was doing chainmail, but I hate to do a 10mm in a pendant because it's massive. Okay, that's going. Okay. And then you'll slide. Now these are thinner gauge. It's the wire itself is smaller. Slide your thing on. And this part can get hard to grab. But grab it however you can, and then again twist it. Now you see how mine didn't match up there? One is taller. This one over here is taller. So first I'm just going to grab it like this and get it to be the same height. And that got it even closer. And then sometimes you have to do a gentle push together. I mean, they can't make them all perfect, especially these are kind of cheap ones too. I don't know if you can see, but there's even the coating is flaking off a little bit. So I gotta find some better 7mm ones. I just haven't. Because like I said, I'm just wearing these, so if they get tarnished or whatever, I can just switch it to a new one fairly easily. Oh, see, I even just stretched it. I need to get some better 7mm ones. Okay, where'd it go? See, mistakes and all. I could cut that out and you wouldn't even know. But I'm not going to. Because S happens. So I actually just spread that. Now, if you were going to sell this, I would put a whole new jump ring on. Because that jump ring got a little distorted because it stretched like that. But because I'm wearing it, and again, if the jump ring ends up stretching out at some point, I can just change it myself. But you don't want it to break on someone if possible. Why the hell does it keep stretching? Like that. Either way, it's on. Like I said, I can mess with it if I'm wearing it and all of a sudden something gets caught on something, which I doubt. But maybe my nephew, my 2-year-old nephew, grabs it and bends it. I can always put a new one back on. So it is kind of a weird bail with it. I change it. I'm going to leave it. So anyways, that's this tutorial. And I hope you guys enjoyed that. I hope it was a fun not really a technique, but I'm going to be using some mixed media stuff that I have. Right now I'm testing it on clay to see if it's compatible. Because after a couple of months of some material sitting on clay, your clay will start to get sticky or it'll do weird things to the clay. Same with some plastics will. They seem fine at first, but then 6 months down the road, it reacts weird with the clay or it reacts weird with the resin. So I have some products that I've been testing for about 2 months now. So as I'm okay with them with resin and clay, I'll be showing you those to get some cool surface techniques. Techniques that I use on canvas, that I really like on canvas, that I want to try to put on jewelry so I can wear it. So it may not be full polymer clay, but still pretty jewelry pieces. So again, not everybody will want to do this kind of stuff because it is kind of mixed media. It's not full clay. But I think it's a pretty piece of jewelry, and that's really what I'm about, just making pretty pieces of jewelry and pretty art, you know. I'm not just a polymer clay artist, I'm an artist. I'm a creator. I don't care if it's wood, oil, acrylic, pastels, charcoal, was, you know, stone, tile, glass. I don't care what it is, as long as I'm having fun. Just trying to show you the different angles it's picking up. So even though that one, those light ones were white, they really show up quite green in the light, don't they? And I didn't even use the green abalone one. So anyways, if I do more of these with the different colors, I'll show you. They'd probably be pretty earrings because they would catch the light really well, you know? Okay. If this was helpful for you, just like I say every time, it may be helpful for someone else, or it may be mainly inspiring is what my goal is, to make you realize that you can do it too. This isn't just for any, you know, the crafty, really crafty and people who've gone to art school. You can do it too. Just play with it, have fun, don't stress. You know, if you make a mistake, oh well, we can redo it. You know, a lot of this stuff isn't crazy expensive. This tiny little amount of clay that we used, and this was scrap. The little shells, I think they were like $12 for the set. You know what I mean? It's really not that much material. So if you mess it up, that's okay. It is okay. And hey, you may come out with something really cool. So if this was inspirational for you, it may be for someone else. So please like, share, comment. If you have any questions, write them below. I did just say in my video the other day, a lot of the comments were being held for review, and I don't know why, and I cannot figure out how to get it off. So now I know, and I can check, but I had a couple hundred comments that I didn't even know about. So, if I hadn't been responding, it wasn't because I didn't want to. It was just because I didn't even know you commented. Every time I pick up my phone, I do have like 50 Facebook questions and comments that I try to respond to. So if I don't get back to you, it's not because I didn't read it. It's just because I might not have had the time at lunch or something to respond. So if it is a question, I do try to respond. And if someone in my group responds and it's the same answer, I'll just put a like next to it rather than saying, hey, ditto, I agree. Or I'll post my answer of what I would do. I know a lot of people will post things like when I was using clay softener, people were asking, can I use that something other than the Sculpey clay softener? If I haven't tested it, I'm not going to say yes. I know people were saying different oils, but I haven't tested that. So myself, and I haven't seen if 6-8 months down the road, your clay is going to get weird. I haven't seen if that's going to affect the strength of your clay. I'm not going to say that until myself, if I've needed it, I will test it and I will tell you. So anyways, I'll stop talking and I will see you next time. Later.